So just thinking, been reading today Ephesians chapter 6, verse 6, caught my attention. Not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. And I was thinking, well, what's like some practical differences between men pleasers and people who, it says, servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart? So here's a couple thoughts. Men pleasers do just enough to look good when someone's watching. But Christ servants work diligently whether they are seen or unseen. So a good example of that would be somebody says, well, I'm a Sunday school teacher, and because my Sunday school class is large, then I'll put in a lot of effort. But the person who is a servant of Christ recognizes that even small numbers in a Sunday school class deserve excellence because we're not doing it for men, we're doing it for Christ. Another example, men pleasers act differently depending on who is present. And people who serve the Lord remain consistent in their character and conduct no matter who is around. So you have an employee that will cut corners when the boss isn't around versus someone who does it whether the boss is around or not, right? Men pleasers versus servants of Christ. What about men who serve for recognition, right? They serve for recognition, compliments. They serve in order to get into a position. But Christ's servants serve no matter what their position is, just simply because Christ is worthy of it. So whether or not they get any applause, whether or not they get any attention, or whether or not they get any admiration, they're just simply serving for an audience of one. So, you have a church member who faithfully visits the sick and prays for the lost, and they do it whether or not the pastor gives them recognition or not. They do it whether or not anyone notices. They don't have a position. They don't have a title. They're just a guy who loves the Lord. They're just a lady who loves the Lord, and they're out serving and praying and being a blessing to people, and they don't need any kind of recognition. What about a man pleaser? Men pleasers. They serve reluctantly with things that they kind of view beneath them. But Christ servants jump at an opportunity no matter what it is, right? So a teenager that's a man pleaser would say, oh, well, taking out the trash or cleaning the church, that's kind of beneath me. But a teenager who is a servant of the Lord helps clean the church, not because they were asked, not because they were assigned, but simply because they love God and His house, right? So last one to think about. Men pleasers live for the moment, and they live for the praise of men. But Christ's servants live for the moment when Christ says to them, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So a missionary who doesn't ever garner a whole lot of support financially or prayerfully and serves consistently and faithfully comes to the throne of God and hears, well done, thou good and faithful servant. No applause, no attention, just serving for the Lord. So do the right thing even when no one notices. Do the hard thing even when no one says thank you. And do the holy thing because Christ deserves it. Just thinking, men pleasers or Christ servants?